This is the headset because I speak in Arabic. I start in Arabic. Can we close the door, please? صباح الخير جميعا. اليوم معنا البند 7/1 حفل توزيع جائزة المنظمة العالمية للأرصاد الجوية IMO والمحاضرة العلمية. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. البروفيسورة سيلستي ساولو، الأمين العام للمنظمة العالمية للأرصاد الجوية، سعادة السفيرة نيكولا جيلهوف، سفيرة البعثة الدائمة لجمهورية ألمانيا الاتحادية لدى مكتب الأمم المتحدة والمنظمات الدولية الأخرى في جنيف، البروفيسور جيرهارد أدريان، الضيوف الكرام السيدات والسادة، يسرني ويشرفني أن أترأس حفل منح الجائزة 69 للمنظمة العالمية للأرصاد الجوية، وأن أرحب بضيوفنا المميزين. إنه لمن دواعي السرور والشرف أن نفتتح اليوم هذه المراسم الخاصة بمنح جائزة المنظمة العالمية للأرصاد الجوية، وهي أرفع وسام علمي تقدمه المنظمة العالمية للأرصاد الجوية. إن جائزة المنظمة العالمية للأرصاد الجوية تمثل رمزاً للتميز والالتزام والريادة العلمية في مجالات الأرصاد الجوية والهيدرولوجية والعلوم ذات الصلة. فمنذ تأسيسها عام 1955 كرمت هذه الجائزة أفراداً كان لأعمالهم أثر بالغ في تشكيل وتطوير علومنا، وساهموا من خلال ذلك في إنقاذ الأرواح وتعزيز القدرة على الصمود وتعميق التعاون العلمي. إنها ليست مجرد ميدالية أو لقب، بل هي اعتراف بمسيرة حياة مكرسة للعلم. وتمنح الجائزة هذا العام إلى البروفيسور الدكتور جيرهارد أدريان، الذي يجسد من خلال قيادته وإرثه العلمي القيم التي أنشأت هذه الجائزة لتكريمهم. وفيما ستتحدث الأمين العام البروفيسور ساولو لاحقا عن إنجازاته المحددة والصفات الإنسانية التي جعلت في مسيرته المهنية نموذجا يحتذى، اسمحوا لي نيابة عن المنظمة العالمية للأرصاد الجوية وجميع أعضائها أن أؤكد على أهمية هذا الحدث. ينظم البروفيسور أدريان أو ينضم البروفيسور أدريان إلى نخبة من العلماء الذين سبقوه في نيل هذه الجائزة الرفيعة. فجائزة المنظمة العالمية للأرصاد الجوية لا تكرم الإنجازات الماضية فحسب، بل تعيد التأكيد على المبادئ التي توجه عملنا، وهي النزاهة العلمية والتعاون متعدد الأطراف وخدمة المجتمع. ويذكرنا كل من حاز هذه الجائزة بأن العلم حيث يمارس بنبل وتواضع يمكن أن يكون قوة موحدة. وسيذكر اسم جيرهارد الآن إلى جانب الأسماء التي أرست أسس علم الأرصاد الجوية الحديث، ومن خلال هذه الجائزة نجدد التزامنا الجماعي بتسخير العلم لخدمة الإنسانية. اسمحوا لي أن أختتم بتعبيري عن خالص التقدير والامتنان. تهانينا للبروفيسور أدريان، لقد جعلت من المنظمة ومن العالم مكانا أفضل بفضل تفانيك ونموذجك الملهم، وشكرا. والآن يسعدني أن أعطي الكلمة للبروفيسورة سيليستي ساولو الأمين العام للمنظمة العالمية للأرصاد الجوية لتقديم الفائز بالجائزة. تفضلي.
Dear Professor Adrian, dear Gerhard, before I address this distinguished audience, let me first speak to you directly. It's a true joy and a personal honor to celebrate you today. I have had the privilege of working alongside you for nearly a decade, first as a colleague in Congress and EC, then as your vice president, and now on this special occasion. Through every step, I have seen your intelligence in action, your generosity in collaboration, and your deep devotion to WMO. You have guided us not only with expertise, but with humanity. And those of us who work closely with you know how rare and valuable that combination is. Excellencies, dear Nicola, dear colleagues, distinguished guests and friends, I am truly honored and personally delighted to stand before you today to celebrate a remarkable scientist, a visionary leader, and a cherished friend of our meteorological community, Professor Dr. Gerhard Adrian, recipient of the 69th IMO Prize. Gerhard's contributions to meteorology go far beyond technical expertise. He shaped the very soul of the World Meteorological Organization during a period marked by complexity, uncertainty, and transformative change. Let me begin by highlighting one of the pivotal moments of his leadership, the extraordinary Congress, the extraordinary session of the World Meteorological Congress in 2021. Gerhard stood at the helm and strategically guided the approval of the WMO Unified Data Policy. This was not only a milestone for the WMO, it was a bold step forward for the global scientific community. Gerhard's clarity and unwavering commitment to open access helped transform a long-held vision into a reality. This was at the time when we were grappling with the COVID-19 pandemic. His diplomacy was crucial at an online event which offered no chance for corridor discussions and networking. If I have to choose one word to describe Gerhard's legacy, it would be trust. Trust that stems from knowledge, solid, extensive, always precise. Trust that comes from a leader who listens carefully, speaks with intentions, and brings people together. And above all, trust that comes from someone who has always cared deeply for our members, for the Secretariat, and for the future of our organization. During his presidency from 2019 to 2023, Gerhard Adrian was a central force in the implementation of the WMO governance reform. He never sought the spotlight. He simply ensured the work was done and was done well. His approach was inclusive, respectful, and determined. Members knew that they were seen, heard, and supported. He ensured that each felt we had a place at the table and that our voices mattered. Beyond his presidency, Gerhard helped lay the foundation for some of the WMO's most impactful initiatives. Gibbon and SOF, cornerstones of our effort to strengthen the global observing system, took root under his leadership. He didn't just endorse these ideas, he created a space for them to grow, work through their complexity, and build coalitions to carry them forward. This was the result of decades of experience, including more than 20 years of service to the WMO across various scientific and governance bodies. And it was rooted in his lifelong dedication to excellency in meteorology. As president of the German Weather Service, DWD, Gerhard has also been a figurehead for operational and scientific advancement. He fostered the integration of research and operations, prioritized climate services, and championed innovation while never losing insight to the human dimension of our work. As a result, DWD is a role model for excellence and for regional and global cooperation. I often say that the best leaders are not those who speak the loudest, but those whose presence brings clarity, purpose, and unity. Gerhard is such a leader. His legacy is not just written in policy documents or meeting reports. It lives in the enduring trust among our members and the progress we've made together towards a more open, inclusive, and impactful WMO. On a personal note, Gerhard, you were the one who signed my contract as Secretary General on the very day you completed your term as President of the WMO. I will always appreciate the quiet symbolism of that gesture. You were closing one chapter and welcoming another with your signature and your support. And finally, something I and many others truly admire: your astonishing knowledge of the WMO Convention and regulations. You could quote them, explain them, and apply them with such precision that we often joked that you had memorized them cover to cover. In fact, I don't think it was a joke. Thank you, Gerhard. Your guidance, your discipline, and your dedication to WMO are exceptional. You helped lead this organization through a time of transition with rare clarity and conviction. And you did so with humility and heart. Please join me in congratulating Professor Dr. Gerhard Adrian, recipient of the 69th IMO Prize.
شكرا بروفيسورة ساولو. والآن أعطي الكلمة لسعادة السفيرة نيكولو جيلهوف لتقديم كلمتها. تفضل.
Dear Excellencies, Mr. President, Ms. Secretary General, dear Celeste, EC members, presidents of technical commission and other WMO bodies, distinguished guests. Dear Professor Adrian, today it is my great pleasure to address you on this happy occasion of the IMO Prize ceremony. You're receiving this award for your outstanding leadership in the international weather, climate, and water community, with a particular emphasis on advancing the work of the World Meteorological Organization. And now allow me to dig a bit deeper into your professional career. As you all know, Professor Dr. Gerhard Adrian is a meteorologist by heart who strongly advocates for international collaboration. He studied meteorology in Karlsruhe, where he also completed his doctorate and was later on appointed adjunct professor at the university. In 1999, he started his career at the Deutsche Wetterdienst, the German Weather Service, DWD, and took up the role as the head of Research and Development business area. Under his leadership and guidance, the German Weather Service transformed its data assimilation methods, which then became key in numerical modeling. The development of tools for forecasters that enabled nowcasting with a strong focus on using radar and satellite data were also fostered, as well as the forecaster's workstation NINO, which was developed jointly with Canada, Denmark, and Switzerland. Furthermore, post-processing was introduced and set a first landmark in using AI methodologies. Professor Adrian also strongly supported DWD's 2 observatories, taking on the role as GRUAN lead and therewith the responsibility of supporting WMO's Global Atmosphere Watch program, as well as for building the German contribution to the integrated carbon observation system. He also introduced a new research strategy to ensure innovation and collaboration with the German research community. Through the establishment of the so-called Hans-Ertl Center, a strong partnership with the academic community facilitating basic research in Germany has been established and ensures that the results are translated into the advancement of weather and climate services. Ladies and gentlemen, in 2010, Professor Adrian was appointed as president of the German Weather Service. Under your leadership, the German Weather Service strengthened its infrastructure and improved products and services even during times of limited resources. Sounds familiar. For instance, the service network was completely automated and new capacities for climate predictions and projections were developed together with the research community. You also strongly fostered the positioning of the German Weather Service as a modern and attractive employer, introducing mobile and flexible working arrangements long before COVID, as well as improving training and education of personnel and initiatives on gender balance. You gained a reputation and much appreciation for your calm and open approach, your thoughtfulness, and your complete commitment to the organization, as well as taking on active interest in all aspects of the work. As the PR of Germany with the WMO and as an elected EC member, you led one of the teams which drafted the concept and implementation plan of the Global Framework on Climate Services, which was approved at the Extraordinary Congress in 2012. Consequently, he was a delegate to the International Board on Climate Services and a member of its management committee. He served continuously on the EC Working Group on Strategic and Operational Planning and was in the Regional Association 4 Management Group, where he helped to better connect the regions and to advocate its involvement in WMO matters. Following 10 years as a member of the EC, Professor Adrian was elected to WMO President by the 18th World Meteorological Congress in 2019. Despite the disruptive COVID pandemic, which also meant Professor Adrian was the first to chair a fully virtual WMO Congress in 2011. And Celeste also alluded to the results which you negotiated on that very Congress. Professor Adrian has been a strong and consistent advocate of the WMO's global meteorological infrastructure and the wider community as recognized in his election as WMO President. Also, your prioritization of attending meetings in person is well known. You enjoyed strong support from dedicated members, elected officers, and the Secretariat, particularly in your efforts and commitment to strengthening the organization and building up resilience in the face of the challenges presented by ever more extreme weather events and climate change. Professor Adrian, I would like to congratulate you on becoming the recipient of the 69th IMO Prize. Let me thank you for all your efforts in what has been an outstanding and prestigious career, supporting and leading this important community. I wish you continued success in all your future endeavors. Thank you.
شكرا سعادة السفيرة. والآن ننتقل إلى تسليم الجائزة، والتي سيتم من قبلي والأمين العام، وتشمل ما يلي: أولا ميدالية من الذهب عيار 14 قيراطا، ثانيا دبلوم يحتوي على نص الجائزة، وثالثا تسليم شيك الجائزة. أود أن أشير هنا إلى ما ورد في الفقرة 9.3.6 من تقرير الدورة 42 للمجلس التنفيذي، والتي أقر فيها المجلس بأنه ينبغي دعوة الحاصلين على جائزة المنظمة العالمية للأرصاد الجوية لتقديم محاضرة علمية خلال جلسات المجلس التنفيذي أو المؤتمرات. وقد منحت الجلسة 78 للمجلس التنفيذي التي عقدت من 10 إلى 16 يونيو 2024 الجائزة 69 للبروفيسور جيرهارد أدريان. البروفيسور أدريان، الكلمة لك، تفضل.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. President. Dear Excellency Gilhoff, Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General, dear colleagues, I'm very honored, first of all, to receive the prize, but also by the very kind words I have heard. I mean, Excellency Gilhoff has digged very deeply, obviously, to my career. So now I remember some things. And thank you very much, Celeste, also for your very kind words. I haven't heard this so far. Thank you very much. But of course, now you are expecting something from me. And yeah, you heard a lot about my career, and it began, let's say, if I take also my studies at the University of Karlsruhe, as you heard, in 1975. So we are speaking about 50 years being active in meteorology. The next slide, please. Yeah, here you see sorry. Here you see, let's say, the development of the scores. It's a very old-fashioned score. However, that's what DWD has from its beginning of numerical weather prediction in relation to my career. Beginning in 1975 at the university, 1981, I received the diploma. And at this time, the quality of a one-day forecast was as good as today a one-week forecast. And this was for me, but this I have never expected during my career, that we really reach this score, this quality of our products. And I will come later during my talk also about what can we do with this information, which is available today in comparison to that during the last 50 years. By the way, the European Center for Medium Range Weather Forecasting, ECMWF, began its work also in 1975. It was established in 1973 formally as an intergovernmental institution with 8 European member states at the beginning. And the center was tasked with a scientific question. The question was, are weather forecasts beyond today possible? And the center demonstrated that this is possible. The task was fulfilled. And the good news are the center still exists for all our support. Next slide, please. But of course, where did this development begin? Where did our predecessors come from? And there's a very nice article from Wilhelm Bjerknes in 1911, written in German, because he was at that time professor at the German University in Leipzig. And there exists also an English translation, and one should read this from my perspective. The problem of weather forecasting as a problem in mechanics and physics. It was, I think that maybe it was the first time that it was written down that we are speaking here about the physics of atmosphere when we speak about weather forecasting. And Bjerknes described in this paper that that the necessary task to solve this physical problem. As you can read here, a sufficient accurate knowledge of the state of the atmosphere at the initial time. This requires, of course, a well-coordinated global observing system, which was not available at that time. A sufficiently accurate knowledge of the laws according to which one state of the atmosphere develops to another. These physical laws were available. Next slide, please. Yeah, Bjerknes' approach, he made a proposal how to solve this problem. He stated that to use graphical methods on the basis of approximations of the Navier-Stokes equations. And this methodology we call today synoptic meteorology. That was the beginning, and he spent a lot of work when he came to Bergen. We know the Bergen School of Meteorology. Unfortunately, this methodology works only in the mid-latitudes, not in the tropic regions. On the other side, there was at the same time developed a completely different approach by Richardson from the Met Office at that time. He published a book, 1922, on the development of a numerical weather model. Yeah, and you see it on the next slide as the beginning of the numerical weather prediction. There you see also the title of the book, sorry. Weather Prediction by Numerical Process. That was his proposal. It's a book of about 150 pages where he wrote down exactly the equations, the approximations of the equations. He uses the hydrostatic assumption as a filter condition. He wrote down how he came to the numerical approximation, everything you can read down there. And this book was published by Cambridge University Press together with an appendix, and this could be bought without the book. These were worksheets which he developed together with his wife to do this numerical exercise to solve this problem. With his wife together, he worked out one time step, and he needed for this 6 weeks. And his interpretation of the result was that this does not work, and this was a mistake. A former colleague from Owen demonstrated this. It's a very nice book from Peter Lynch available, where he used this model because this was well documented, better maybe than code today. And he and implemented this on the modern computer. It really runs, but it could be really used for weather forecasting. And Peter Lynch explained also why Richardson had a problem. Yeah, I looked to Owen Moran. It was a colleague from. Peter Lynch was deputy director of Met-Iron, the Irish Meteorological Service. The next slide, please. Yeah, Richardson models formulation. It was from today's perspective, a quite modern approach. 3-dimensional, hydrostatic filtered, as I mentioned, used primitive variables. It was not clear at the beginning. Pressure as vertical coordinate, and a flow-dependent turbulence parameterization, where he introduced a dimensionless number, which we call today the Richardson number. And compared to other model development, for instance, in DWD, this model was more or less the state of the art in 2010 and developed in between 1910 and 1920. Now, the first NWP system in the German Weather Service. Next slide, please. It was a barotrope model, 381 kilometer grid size. It was a hemispheric model formulated on a polar stereographic projection. That means on the projection we use today on the weather charts. The North Pole was in the middle. In the middle, you see here a sketch where you see Europe in the model domain. The circle you see also on the graphics, that's 15 degrees north. That was the end of the model domain. And this model domain was taken as an octagon, approximating this 15 degrees north. And this was barotropic model. That means only a one-level model. It has only one level in 500 hectopascal, because as we know, the atmosphere behaves approximately in this level as somehow barotropic. And the physics in this model was simply only to conserve momentum or angular momentum, or one component of the angular momentum, the third component, which we call today vorticity. Nothing else. And this system runs until 1978 and was then replaced by a baroclean model with 6 layers and 254 kilometer grid size. And by this model, the first time precipitation was possible and the topography was available, not in the first barotropic model. The barotropic model, that was the state when I came to the university. The next slide shows the next developments. It was recognized that the hemispheric forecasting system was not anymore a state of the art, and a new approach was needed. For this, in DWD, the global spectral model of ECMWF was implemented with an optimum interpolation system for the data assimilation, still by a resolution, of course, limited by the available computer performance, and it had approximately a grid size of 200 kilometers. That was the state in 1990, 30 years ago. And of course, this system didn't fulfill the user's expectations of weather forecast with 200 kilometer grid size. The prediction of synoptic scale phenomena like cyclones and anticyclones were seen as acceptable by the forecasters. But forecasts of smaller mesoscale phenomena, which is weather from our perspective today, is still based or was still based on synoptic interpretation of skilled forecasters. Therefore, it was expected in DWD that NWP systems with higher resolution may help. And to achieve this, additional model developed, an own model development started with a limited area hydrostatic model with a grid size of about 60 kilometers and the same model nested in itself with 14 kilometers called, the first one European model because it covers Europe, and the other 14-kilometer version covers more or less Germany. And at that time, Christoph Appenzeller sits here, a very productive cooperation with Meteor Swiss started, and Meteor Swiss uses this model also as a Swiss model with a shifted domain. The cooperation, I come to this later, has been very fruitful and very necessary. These model EM and DM and SM, let's say this was more or less on the level of Richardson's approach. That was state of the art in this time. This was possible, let's say. Of course, as meteorologists, we had wishes which should, how such a forecasting system should look like, but only this was possible on the available computers. The EM-DM-SM system, some of you may know this, was later migrated on PCs or PC networks by my colleague Detlef Majewski and was made available to NMHSs of developing countries for free and with free initial and boundary conditions. Yeah, of course, that's not the end. The next slide, but yeah, you see it here, the new demands on the NWP system. Yeah, the most severe weather phenomena in this region, in this climate zone, we are here also in Geneva, are often caused by deep convection, as we experience from time to time here during our meetings. So seems to be necessary to have a model system allowing simulation of deep convection. New computer architectures came out from shared memory system to massive parallel system with distributed memory. Or nowadays we are speaking about GPUs, and let's say the actual forecasting system of DWD, which is also available to the COSMO Consortium and to others, runs also on GPUs, and this is demonstrated or it is in operation by Meteor Swiss. So this is obviously possible to develop such a code where the migration is possible. Of course, reduction of the maintenance cost, that was also mentioned. And therefore it was, of course, a decision to in the 90s to develop a new forecasting system, especially one resolving the process of deep convection. And this was done by the development of a non-hydrostatic limited area model, which we called LM. The next slide, please. Because of the maintenance cost, the experience with the ECMWF system was it was too difficult and too costly really to maintain the system. Therefore, it was also decided to develop an own global forecasting system. This was the first development of a global forecasting system in DWD. We call this GME. It replaces the global model with the grid size of the previous limited area model EM, therefore the name G, global ME. And nested in this system, the local model LM, allowing direct simulation of deep convection. This model was the first full compressible system. That means really to solve the full Navier-Stokes equations. This became operational on the 1st December 1999, 24 days before the disastrous winter storms causing severe damages in France and in Germany. And I was blamed as the person who took the decision to begin the operations with the system. And many people told me that this was too early, and the staff committee decided to request to fire me, which didn't happen. Okay. This global model, the next slide, it has a completely different grid. It's a triangular grid constructed following a proposal by a very old proposal. You see the icosaeder in the top on the right side with these triangles. That's 20 corners. And this was more or less put into the sphere. The lines of the triangles are projected on the sphere. That was the first grid. And then you could have at each side of the triangle, you get the next level of approximation. And yet this can be repeated and repeated and repeated. Today, the global forecasting system for research application runs also with 2 kilometers grid size at the Max Planck Institute for Meteorology. And one constraint was also the high scalability on massive parallel computers. This was also achieved. It runs on very different computer systems with this data structures, which we have later on the next version of or next generation of the model. As I said before, it runs also on GPUs. And this system, the global model, is still a hydrostatic model, and the LM have been replaced by the next generation. That was the ICON system. And that is the actual system in DWD. The next slide. Yeah, take long words or many words together and select the right letters, and you get an acronym. That was this technique was repeated several times. Yeah. So the icosahedral non-hydrostatic model framework. It was the first time really that we had an open discussion with the German academic sector. It was an agreement very much supported by the government, a cooperation between German Weather Service with the Max Planck Institute for Meteorology. The goal was to have a unified or develop a unified system for NWP application as well as for climate modeling. For climate modeling, it was recognized that we need the exact local mass conservation, which is, for instance, not true for the ECMWF system. Mass consistent tracer transport, flexible grid, nesting capability, that has to nest the system in itself, that's possible. Non-hydrostatic equations, as I mentioned, and it's new, and that was very much the work from Sarah Jones, really to convince our ministry and the government to make this system free available under an open source license. And you see more information there on this website, which I mentioned there. I mentioned partners. Partners have been very important during this development, and we gain a lot from our partners, and I hope our partners are also happy with us. That's of course Deutscher Wetterdienst, one partner. The Max Planck Institute for Meteorology is one partner. The German Climate Computing Center is one partner. Karlsruhe University and Karlsruhe Institute for Technology. And the Center for Climate System Modeling, where Meteor Swiss is also a partner from this. And with this partnership, this model was developed in the next, was completely modeled and is now applied in many institutions, in national meteorological services. That means at MeteoSwiss and in the COSMO consortium. You see here several representatives of the COSMO consortium here. If you have questions to the system, you could ask them to get the contact to their colleagues in the different languages. We use this also as an advantage. Here, the partners in the COSMO consortium, I should mention, I mentioned that, of course, Germany, Switzerland, Italy, it's Poland, it's Romania, it's Greece, and Israel. I think I haven't forgotten one. Yeah, ICON is, meanwhile, this system is available under open source. As I mentioned, ICON is used for very different applications, for global and regional weather forecasts, climate research, climate predictions at several centers, for research by many academic and operational partners, partner organizations, and they contributed to the system, for instance, by an ocean model, cryosphere, carbon cycle, air chemistry, air pollution as part of this release. So everybody who wants to get access to this system gets this for free. And there are standardized community interfaces available for additional plugins. So everybody could put other things into the system without changing the original code. Yeah, the next slide, open data, which was very necessary for having this cooperation. The next slide, please. Yeah, here you see open data. Of course, now DWD is committed as a world meteorological center. That means everybody could download for free, which is not a problem. At the beginning, it was something special. It was a decision, a program under the Infrastructure Commission. Michel Jean sitting here to make a special defined set of information free available. And graphical products, many graphic products, as well as the digital output, it's available in real time. And yeah, it was possible that DWD convinced the German Parliament really to take a decision to amend the Act on the Deutscher Wetterdienst, the Act on the German Weather Service. We have a law which describes our tasks. And there's written, for instance, provision of spatial data and spatial data services of DWD are free of charge. And this is available. It's implemented. It costs us a lot to make all our products, everything, most of the output of the numerical weather prediction system, for instance, in near real time available. That was also a big technical challenge my colleagues solved. Okay, now we have the weather forecasting system. What to do with that? The next slide, please. The integration of NWP into the weather forecasting process. We still have, as I said at the beginning, we had, let's say, the Bjerknes approach with graphical methods, and the other approach, numerical weather prediction, how to bring this together. Yeah, of course, we spend a lot of development in DWD on nowcasting tools, which are also today fully automized in DWD and run also in ensemble mode to describe the uncertainty of the nowcasting. But there's still the problem. The forecasters see that there is an inconsistency between nowcasting and NWP. And one reason you see on the next slide, a new acronym again, Seamless Integrated Forecasting System. The challenge for NWP perspective, the NWP is older than NWP output is older than the nowcasting. Nowcasting starts at the time of observation, and NWP system traditionally takes some hours until to reach the time now. So the data input for the NWP system is older at the time when nowcasting starts. Because before that, you have the data assimilation cycle and the production cycle for NWP. Would take 2 hours, 3 hours, depending on the forecasting system. And yeah, that's the reasons which was identified by my colleague in the solution. They found, or they developed, you see this on the next slide, please. Yeah, first of all, of course, to improve the nowcasting systems, but also to run the icon system in a rapid update cycle. And that's the let's say the model domain in the circle there. There is it's an ensemble prediction system with a grid size of 6.5 kilometers. The deterministic forecast is 2 kilometers, and this runs every hour. Of course, this needs boundary conditions. From the next level, the rapid update cycle, it's an ensemble of 20 members with the grid size of 2 kilometers. 40 members are needed for the ensemble data assimilation system, which is used on this scale and also on the other scales. Forecast range is 14 hours, and every hour the cycle is repeated. And of course, it's nested 2 times in the end to the global system, the deterministic forecast, 13 kilometers, global 26. And yeah, the products are available after 40 minutes. So the rapid update cycle output is 40 minutes old to be compared with nowcasting. And this is one important step forward. But where do the observations come every hour, which should be used in a rapid update cycle? That's mainly from remote sensing, ground-based remote sensing, as well as satellite, so radar, lidar, SODA from the ground, and satellites from space. Yeah, that has a big impact on the operational schedule of such a forecasting system. Next slide, please. Difficult to recognize it. Try to explain this. You see, let's say 2 clocks, 24 hours, not 12 hours, 24 hours. In the left side, let's say the status in 2022, 2 main production cycles, 0 UTC, 12 UTC, an additional one at 21 UTC. And in between, the computer was available for different tasks, for instance, to support development. That was the traditional approach. On the right side, you see the actual schedule. No, sorry, on the same slide. One back, please, there. And there you see every hour this green parts. This is the rapid update cycle, and then the 2 others from the upper scales as a boundary condition. It looks completely different, and of course it's also a technical challenge to manage such a system, but it works. So this system becomes recently operational, and of course, what can we do with such improved short-range and very short-range forecasting system? And of course, the next task, you see it on the next slide, is to use this in the weather warning process as one of our most important tasks. Again, a new acronym, long words to put long words together, select the right letters you need, and you get RAINBOW. Risk-based, application-oriented, and individualizable, optimized weather warnings. Seamless warnings from immediate to a warning trend covering up to 7 days. So this is in a pre-operational phase. This will become available to the users. And together with the possibility to communicate the uncertainty of the forecast. Therefore, we need the ensemble prediction system. It's a lot of information. Not everybody is really able to use this. Therefore, the system foresees different kind of users. Let's say the person on the street, as we say it in German, as we say it in the German, we get simplified weather warnings. also simpler than the warning system, or less complex than the warning system which we have in the moment. And there is also will be an interactive configuration of the chance or the possibility for interactive configuration of warning profiles depending on the user's application. Very different users, professional users, like fire brigades, disaster management, road management, industry, infrastructure institutions, water management and flood forecasting, they all need different kinds of warnings and with a different accuracy of information or certainty of information. And they can configure the warnings they want to get. That's the response to many requests from these professional organizations. For instance, the fire brigades, the heads of the fire brigades, at least in Germany, are mostly well-educated engineers. I think they should be able to use such a system. And this is discussed with them. So it's more or less their request to get this information. And that's the way how DWD wants to respond. Another new application which becomes more and more important. Next slide. I guess many of your services are going in the same direction. In Germany, for instance, the electric power supply in 2024 was about 60% from renewable energy. And from them, and this is divided in 32% from wind energy, wind turbines, and 10% from photovoltaic. And there's also water power, but they're quite small in Germany. And these, let's say, energy sources are strongly weather dependent. And to keep such a system stable, the managers of the distribution of electric energy have a strong need on weather forecasts, weather information on all scales which we could deliver. But what is the situation now? The situation in 1 minute, in 10 minutes, in 1 day, in 10 days. And they are strong. They have strong requests to DWD, and there was also one of the largest externally funded project was really to develop common products for them or which they could use in their automatic management systems. This was very successful. It's important users now for meteorological information. To keep the energy system stable, you need meteorological information more and more and more. Or another example on the next slide, that's the Saharan dust, which is observed quite often here in this region or in Germany. Happens up to 20 times per year at least. We could observe Saharan dust here on the cars and so on, getting yellow. A recent event, for instance, Easter in Germany, everything was yellow. And this has a strong effect on the photovoltaic energy production because the panels are covered by Saharan dust and could reduce in a time frame of few minutes to reduce the production of 20%. That means also this has to be there. It's a task for us, for a meteorological service, to forecast such events. Of course, from a meteorological perspective, very similar are the plumes from wildfires, from forest fires. And there was long discussion, why could we observe here in the center of Europe the smoke from wildfire from Canada in the last 2 or 3 weeks. Very severe event there in Canada, but it has also an impact on the photovoltaic production here in Germany or in the center of Europe. And this can be forecasted today, not only observed, but also forecasted. Yeah, coming to the end, factors of success of this development. On the left, you'll see the output, the beginning of NWP and DWD with a line printer. I think only few of you know these kinds of printers. I do. And on the right side, let's say a modern visualization of such a Saharan dust outbreak when you see the high concentrations over Europe. coming from the Sahara, going to Italy, to Switzerland, to Germany, to Scandinavia. Yeah, the next slide, please. Success factors. What I want to mention here is the WMO. And here, of course, it was mentioned before. Yes, I had the chance to chair the Extraordinary Congress. And the Congress has taken very important decisions. Yeah, really task of WMO, where the WMO and its community, it's not done really by the WMO. The WMO is the coordinator. Of course, it's done by all our services. A globally coordinated observing system, the World Weather Watch. And this was reformulated, renewed, let's say, by the two decisions, Resolution 2 and 3 of the Extraordinary Congress in 2021. It was mentioned before, the Global Basic Observing Network, GBON, and also ideas on financing the system as the Resolution 3 on the Systematic Observation Financing Facility, SOF. Both were mentioned before. And of course, the free and open exchange, international exchange of data. That was Resolution 1 of this Extraordinary Congress, the WMO Unified Policy for the International Exchange of Earth System Data. We have spoken with Resolution 40 about meteorological information about the atmosphere. You see on one slide the decision from 1896 from the IMO on the establishing radio sounding observations at least once per month, 1 day per month. So that's the big progress. But it took many years to make this data available from the observations from the 19th century. It was done by organized by Willem Bjerknes also. And yeah, today we need more. We need information about the whole Earth system. And this was, of course, a request on the one hand side to other, let's say, partners responsible for the observation of the Earth system, but also an invitation to use this data policy of the World Meteorological Organization because the others don't have this. And of course, this works only having the necessary standards and infrastructure for observations and data exchange. There we have WIS, WIGOS, WIPS in the hands of the Infrastructure Commission. And that's, let's say, strong requests from the users, from all users to WMO that this will be available and further developed also in the future. But it was a big success to get these decisions, I agree. But of course, that's the role of WMO in the system. It's one of the success factors of the development I've shown. The next success factor also on the next slide is really the international and national collaboration. And that's what we learned with the development of the local model and then at the end with ICON. The collaboration between the national and hydrological meteorological services with their national partners. That was one step for instance, making ICON available under open source, has opened partnerships with a growing international interdisciplinary community, not only on the national level, but also on the international level. And of course, the collaboration with intergovernmental organizations, ECMWF, EUMETSAT, and the European Union, mostly in our case. But of course, also to use these intergovernmental organizations as a framework for collaboration between the contributors to these organizations, which are in the mentioned, what I mentioned here, also the National Meteorological Services. It's very helpful to have let's say such a roof, such an organization, and to use them really to foster international cooperation. Yeah, my last slide. Yeah, I thought, should I really write down a list? No, I think there does not exist any list which is complete. Therefore, I try to do this on this way. Thank you to all who supported me during the last 50 years. Thank you very much also to you all, also during my time here in the WMO. I liked it very much to work in the WMO framework, not only as president, but also my first, let's say, my first WMO meeting was in Oslo many years ago, a meeting of the Commission for Atmospheric Science. Yeah, thank you very much for your interest, and I wish you and the WMO good success also for the future. Thank you.
شكرا لك بروفيسور أدريان، وكل الشكر موصول للأرصاد الألمانية. ونحن نتجه إلى عصر AI، وأنا متأكد من الأرصاد الألمانية تعمل جاهدة لتحقيق تقدما في هذا المجال. شكرا لك. والآن المجال مفتوح لأي استفسار أو ملاحظة. تفضل. Sarah Jones.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you, Gerhard, for this beautiful journey through the developments over many years. You've shown the progress that's been made, and you made some crucial decisions along the way. For example, choosing non-hydrostatic version of ICON, working in partnership nationally and internationally, and going straight for the convective scale ensemble. When DWD started working on the limited convective permitting modeling, limited area convective permitting modeling. And you also made decisions to switch things off, to stop developing systems so as to consolidate, to move from a well-tried and tested modeling system, Cosmo, for example, to ICON. So as you look towards the future, what advice would you give us? Where do you think we're going to be hitting these difficult decisions to let go of things that we've got used to and work well and develop some new things? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah, for this question. Of course, that was the topic I selected was, let's say, looking backward during the 50 years. Now it's a question what could become in the future. And of course, Mr. President, you mentioned AI. And this is, of course, a development which is also taking place in DWD. But my last my first and last connection with AI in my professional life was 2 years ago in a so-called IQUIT meeting in Vienna, where the discussion came up. That was the first, there happens something we should be aware of. And the Director General of ECMWF was strongly invited to come to Vienna at once, and she came and so on. That was the beginning, let's say, in Europe, and also cooperation. I mentioned cooperation. Meanwhile, it's also a HumidNet program to work on the different level. Now going to DWD, and I had the chance to speak to colleagues working on this. First of one issue is, of course, the hardware which is used for AI, the GPUs. And it was very I think from my perspective, from a strategic perspective, the first step to migrate the existing systems also on this kind of hardware to be more free for the next hardware decisions. But of course, my colleagues, former colleagues in DW spent also a lot of efforts into to go to AI development. And I was told that in autumn they expect that the first AI-based forecasting system of DWD became operational, is in the moment in pre-operational phase. And the results are, from my perspective, good. There are a lot of issues to solve. For instance, as the actual AI system do not know the, let's say, physical constraints, conservation properties, conservation of mass, conservation of energy, that's not secured. Therefore, these global systems are not suitable in the moment for climate applications, but that the people are working on this. So the issue of, let's say, climate application, air pollution modeling, air chemistry, there are questions. The next, of course, many of you apply limited area model. The question is it possible to transfer one trained system to another area? This would be very helpful. Otherwise, every operator of a limited area model must do the same work from the beginning again. And the training is very costly of these systems. This is, for instance, an open issue. And that what I wanted to say, and what we are missing in the moment, the systems are starting with traditional data, is output of traditional data assimilation. And they are trained with the output of NWB systems. So the progress of this AI forecasting systems have been only possible because the traditional systems exist. So in the moment, we need both. In the future, of course, they are working on this problem. Is it possible to train and to initialize the forecast from observations alone? The next step, or the first step in this direction, where in DWD the colleagues are also thinking on, is data assimilation as an intermediate step for going in this direction. I think that's the way what I have heard from the experts in DWD. I got the chance to speak with. They know me, of course, and how they are thinking. But this development of this global forecasting system at ECMWF or in other forecasting centers, it's not only DWD, also the others are working on this. In 2 years, that's, yeah, it's interesting, or very interesting, but very agile development. So far, my answer to your question, Sarah.
شكرا. Christopher.
Thank you, President. And thank you very much, Gerhard, for this really nice presentation and this nice overview, how our numerical modeling world has developed. And you mentioned several times that collaboration is key, and even the development from the early on, Switzerland was participating together with Germany and DWD in this development. And from my side, I just would like to say, for us, it was a great opportunity. We are a much smaller weather service, and this collaboration allowed us to be inside this development and do certain jobs, but we couldn't have done that without you. And from that side, a very big thank you to you, also on behalf of the COSMO members. I mean, that this collaboration was very, very fruitful and a very success also from the side from the partners. Thank you for these comments. I also have a question for you. And you were mentioning that in the DWD and in your ministry, this decision to go open source with the ICAN model. This sounds very technical, but I'm wondering a little bit, what is your experience behind? Because in my opinion, it's more than a technical decision. It's actually about the trust of our weather services. And I just wondering, what is your advice on that, and what is your experience? Thanks a lot.
First, to your first remark of the role of Switzerland in the cooperation with DWD. I mean, what I mentioned, and I think Meteoswiss demonstrated also to us, and we learned from Meteoswiss, that the cooperation, the integration of the national academic sector is very important. And this was done by Meteoswiss much better at the beginning than at DWD, and we learned a lot from you. So when I speak about this international collaboration, it's very important, I think, and very helpful to get the support also from the local and regional research infrastructure. That means mostly the academic sector. Yeah, I forgot your question.
The second one was on open
Yeah, open
principles,
data,
whether this helps to increase the trust in our methodology.
First of all, of course, there's a big technical issue to make this gigabytes of data coming every day as an ensemble prediction system with a grid size of 14 kilometers. To make this free available means really a huge technical work. We should not underestimate this. And this is done in this case by external, let's say, the data infrastructure, data industry. We use them. The trust, yes, of course, it's our responsibility, and I could ask you and also the other Cosmo partners, for instance, going the step from LM to ICON, that was difficult for the partners, and that's what we recognized. And of course, we felt this as our responsibility, really, to on the one hand side, to take care about the partners. So looking how fast they could migrate and what could we do, could we help? And I think this was done, at least from my perspective. At the end, I don't hear any complaints. I don't know what experience you have done with the DWD as a partner, and providing also all the data. Let's say open data means also that the users implement services and hoping that these information is always coming from DWD, not only for free, but also in the time schedule and completeness and so on. Yeah, that's difficult, and it's cost also a lot. But that's, of course, that was recognized, and I hope that we have done a good work in this.
Thank you. Charles?
Thank you so much, President, for giving me the floor. I would like to say thank you to Professor Gerhard and also to DWD. As you mentioned during the lecture, that there is support to developing countries, and Nigeria has been one of those. We've been implementing Cosmo with the DWD support for some time now. And that has not only helped us as a country, but also in our support to other members within the sub-region. So we want to say thank you. And also we have an MOU also to that regard. And also a new one was just signed recently because of our migration from Cosmo to ICON. The only question I have is, and I don't know if you are the one to answer that, since you may not be in the system, is regarding the ICON AI. Just to know if that is going to be also be available to us, maybe probably in the future to implement. And then before I close, I remember my first time meeting you. If you could recall, 2016, in the room down there, we were seated next to each other, and it was a nice time. It's fresh in my memory up to today. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, migration and support. I forgot to mention, it was one of my slides. Also, the support of partners, this is shared with all our Cosmo partners. That means the Cosmo partners provide services to enable others to use this system also. That was one step, I think. So we use the matter of trust also to engage also, let's say, the partners in such activities. Yeah. Sorry, I'm obviously a little bit tired. Your question was, sorry.
Icon AI.
I mean, I read out the sentence, yeah, the sentence from the act on the German Weather Service decided by our parliament in 2024. When Icon AI becomes operational, that means we have the legal obligation really to make the output free available. But the first step, of course, it has to be tested internally that we are sure that this is a good system and that the products are usable, then we make them available. It's our legal obligation. This helps us also a lot. Also requesting the Minister of Finance to get some support for this. Yeah.
شكرا. David.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to appreciate the great presentation by Professor Adrian, and particularly impressive to see that after you left the president's office, you went on sharpening your skills on meteorology. This is very, very uplifting. In one of your slides, I could not quite tell what number. You talk about 7 days warning trend. And that is interesting to me, given that now top in our minds is early warning for all. And wondering whether there's a little effort that can be made to stretch that one further. And yeah, beyond 7 days. And also on that same slide, talked about communication of forecast uncertainty. That's also interesting to me because we are forecasting and issuing messages to people that are waiting, and with the improved certainty of the products. Now, I don't know what the balance would be, whether you can talk about uncertainty in the same message where you are talking about, you're giving a warning about some hazard. I don't know what you would have to say about that. I also had some thoughts about the comparison, which is quite impressive, of NWP and nowcasting, but let me not go into that. I need to look at your presentation a little more closely. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. 70 weather warnings, of course, and combined with the communication of uncertainty of the information. Yeah, that's, my colleagues have different testing in the moment with users, the different ways to communicate, to show this on the website and so on. It's really a very different task to do this. And the final solution, I can say, the only thing what I can say at some time, look into the website of DWD, how DWD has done this. What was recognized from the beginning, that we have different users with different skills, and this has to also be reflected in the weather warning system, especially when it comes also if the users could configure the information themselves. So it's a very difficult task. I fully agree, and up to now we don't have the final solution, but I guess DWD will come out because there's a lot of pressure also to make this available. And when this is available, you will see this also, yeah.
شكرا. آخر سؤال من لوكا. لضيق الوقت لوكا تفضل.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President.
صار رجاءً.
We don't have the translation, but I understand I can take the floor.
Shortly.
Very short. Okay. So thank you for your remarkable, Professor Adrian, for your remarkable Lectio Magistralis. And indeed, I have to confirm that trust is the backbone of this case, Cosmo, Italy is part of. My question goes to collaboration, cooperation, partnership, which were also the words used by Secretary General in her initial remarks at the opening of this EC 79. From your perspective, do you think that this collaboration should expand and spill over other than, let's say, weather and weather prediction and climate change involved bodies to reach other agencies and to remark role and relevance of WMO? Thank you.
Short answer, yes. I think we have to look for these kinds of collaboration, cooperation. Also, the issue what we request from our WMO world, the term single voice, for instance. There, for instance, only one example we have in the moment in Germany. In this region, Germany, meanwhile, we have, as an effect of climate change, also the problem of dry times. Yeah, that means and low water levels and so on. In the moment, the transportation on the German rivers are in danger in the moment and so on. And what I see as a problem, for instance, there's an institution in Germany, also financed by the government, issuing information about the soil humidity, which is an important information for the water management. But DWD does this also, and DWD use its own information, of course, in its own forecasting system. But there are two different kinds of information available, and the users are not really do not really recognize or does not know what to do with information which is might not be the same and not going in the same direction. And to overcome such a situation, I think we have to be open for cooperation with institutions which bring in additional expertise in the system. And of course, when we speak about climate modeling and weather forecasting beyond the medium range, we need the whole Earth system, and the traditional meteorological service does not have really the expertise in this field. And for this, we need urgently also the cooperation with the other sectors. And therefore, it's from my perspective a good step forward. The resolution on the free exchange of Earth system data. It was very good that WMO decided not on meteorological data or atmospheric data or something like that, on speaking directly on Earth system data. I think that's a good step. It's an invitation also to this field. So it's urgently needed.
شكرا. آخر سؤال من دكتورة إلينا، تفضلي.
Thank you very much. Just to say a few words, as a president of Regional Association 6, in the name of all members of our region, please receive a big thanks for your entire activity, your collegiality, your friendship. And in the name of Romanian Meteorological Services, as a member of Cosmo community, also please receive a big thanks for the opportunity to work together. And I am convinced that your work don't stop here. At least for the young generation, I am sure that you could give an advice how we could continue our work to make face in a challenge that means climate change. Thank you so much, and a big thanks to you.
شكرا لك سيدتي. إذن شكرا لبروفيسور أدريان على محاضرتك العلمية المميزة. سيتم إدراج المحاضرة العلمية في تقرير الجلسة. أجدد التهاني الحارة لك بروفيسور أدريان على هذا الإنجاز العظيم، وتوجه بجزيل الشكر لسعادة السفيرة وضيوفنا الكرام والسيدات والسادة على مشاركتكم هنا. والآن نذهب إلى استراحة القهوة.